Testing. Yeah.
Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2.
Takes a couple seconds for. You have to talk right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first live board meeting or in-person board meeting since we had the COVID pandemic. It's nice to see people here in person. I think we all have been through a process that will, I don't know, I woke up every morning and being thankful I was here during all of that. I really did. I can't imagine where I would have been any better off. But it is 3 o'clock, so let's call the meeting to order. And our first bit of business is to approve the minutes from our last board meeting. The board will, the president will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. So, okay. It's approved as written. And then our next, pardon me, our next item is the general manager's report. So Jim?
Thank you, Raj. I appreciate everyone coming out today. It's been nice to see people's faces again and out and about. So like Raj, we were pretty happy that we're here at Conacy during the pandemic. My life probably wasn't as fun as yours, but we made it through it. So that's what matters at this point. Let me just give a quick update of what's sort of going on to both the board and to the community here. Right now, business continues to pick up, and we are looking at beginning to allow all the different groups to meet in the clubhouse again, beginning the first week of July. All the groups should have gotten an email blast on Saturday or Sunday from Nancy to get the request for the meeting space. So we're putting all those requests together and dividing up the rooms and figuring out where we're going to put everybody. But I think we should be able to accommodate most people's needs. We are almost complete with the first floor renovations downstairs. We just have to get the final sign off from the county. We are still struggling to attract and hire staffing in the clubhouse operation. We're approximately 50% of capacity of what we would normally have in clubhouse operations. We are trying to do with all the other businesses in town, both in the Transylvania County and Buncombe County. Just to give you some idea how it's going. Last week there was a chamber event here in Transylvania County. There was 30 or 31 businesses that attended looking for people to fill jobs. 19 people showed up. In Buncombe County, they had one called at the Ag Center called 17 and over. So all those jobs were started at $17 an hour or higher. They had over 100 businesses showed up. 75 people showed up. So it's a big time struggle. I don't know what the answer is, but we're trying. And just to put it in perspective at the local level, the current unemployment rate in Transylvania County is 3.8%. Which means that even with the drop in the unemployment benefits or the state hiring incentives, we have a very small base to attract. Also at the county level, demographically, it's a retiree county. It has a median average of 51.1 from the age demographic. And the actual population base has only increased 1% a year over the last 10 years. And which is another interesting one when you're looking at trying to get younger or people that are work age people, the fertility rate in Transylvania County is 3.9%, which is 25% less than the surrounding counties or the state or the country. So we have a lot of strikes going against us when you're looking at filling jobs over the next few years, not just for us, for anywhere here in the county as a county. And as you know, the county is growing as far as development and businesses. So it's a struggle all looking to try to find the same people to work. So it is going to be a problem here in the county, I believe, in the foreseeable future. But nonetheless, we are working hard at trying to fill the needs, and we're just trying to do more with less. That's basically what we're going to have to figure out how to do. Like I said, we hope to have the lower deck project completed this week and get the sign off on it next week. That will be another room that will be used for multi-purpose, mostly in the mornings for the exercise classes, which we'll be doing inside and outside still. And then in the afternoon will be available for other groups. Saturday nights have been very, very successful. We're averaging anywhere from 120 to 140 people on Saturday nights. As you know, there have been a few complaints about the noise level, or actually two, but we're doing quite a few people which are happy to be here. So you have to sort of manage both those expectations, but we are well within the noise levels of both the decibel and the time level for entertainment. So, and we know that because a couple of people have called the sheriff, and the sheriff showed up, and they came, listened, and said, "This is not a problem. You meet the county requirements." So, Dick Bennett, who is our long tenured A&E liaison, will be retiring soon. We have hired a replacement for that position who will be starting on July 6th. And they'll probably spend a month or so with Dick before he officially retires so that they can get a feel for the job. And hopefully that'll be a smooth transition. We also received, talking about noise, we have been receiving some complaints about a more airplane noise over Conisty. I have personally had not noticed that, but some people did. So just doing some due diligence, I did call and talk to both Asheville and Greenport Airport Authority. And they said it could be that has happened, because they do basically change the flight patterns every 6 months or year just to sort of equalize the noise over the different areas so that not one particular area is getting the noise all the time. So I guess it's our turn basically. On the connectivity, Diamond Tower, who are under an option for a potential tower, does have 2 providers now committed to the tower, but 3 before they could move forward. They're still hoping to have a 3rd party committed by the end of second quarter. But they mentioned that we do have quite a few other tower sites owned by other tower companies that are also actively marketing. So the providers are probably not going to go on all of them. So they're just, it's going to be a determination who gets who. The one thing that has happened, and I believe it's because of the agreement AT&T made with the local fire department, they're putting in over there at Cedar Mountain, they're putting a tower there that will help all emergency personnel through the state. AT&T is providing that at a free service for emergency services, but they also are using that space to add some commercial units for their cellular signal. So AT&T customers are hopefully have noticed that they're getting a little better signal than they did before. But I don't know that to be 100% sure, but numerous AT&T people have told me that has been the case. All the Wi-Fi hotspots throughout the community in the different common areas are working. And we're also working with the tennis committee to roll out an online reservation system for the tennis courts. And there's going to be our beta test. And if that works out, we'll have the ability to roll that out for pickleball, wellness classes, bocce, any of those that would choose to like to use that as well. From a security safety perspective, our contractor, Allied Universal, is still 1 employee short. That's probably going to continue for a while. So the other employees are covering those shifts. Allied has increased their hourly rate and advertising it at a new rate, but it hasn't helped thus far in recruiting anybody. As you know, yesterday we sent out a notice on the new rollout of the new guest policy. We'll probably get some questions on that afterwards, and I'll go over that. But that will be implemented and then start to be rolled out on July 15th. An important thing from a safety perspective, we now have 4 more defibrillators or AED units in place now in the community. We have them basically at the clubhouse, between the bocce ball courts and the pool, the tennis courts. We have them in both restroom facilities on the golf course, so the golf people can get them, and also anyone who's walking along the streets that are close to those. Adagahi Park also has one as well. And I believe Sharon is here somewhere, right? Oh, over here. We put out one about a month ago that showed all the current location, but now we've added some additional ones. So we'll probably put that in the upcoming newsletter, and then we'll probably put it in the in e-blast just to remind people where those locations are. Last week, we had 17 of our staff members successfully complete the CPR and AED certification classes, myself included. So if you see me around and anyone's hurting, just let me know. I'll be rush there to save you. There has been some unique damage been done to quite a few of the mailboxes in the community. I think it's about 10 to 15 now at this point. Some are located in the same area, some are randomly throughout. Unfortunately, no one has seen anything, whether they've physically seen a car or a trailer or a truck hit them. They just notice them down. But it's happening during the day, because the last 2, the people left the house, came back, and it was gone. It was down when they came back. So my guess is, knowing the width of our streets and people not paying attention as far as the commercial traffic, and they're looking at their cell phone or looking at text, it doesn't take much on these roads to slide off just a foot or 2 and catch that mailbox with the big commercial truck or trailer. It's going to take it out. And I think that's what's happening. I'm hoping it's not quote unquote just strictly vandalism, but we don't have any facts right now to determine what it may be. And since this is a normal board meeting, we also talk about we have had no other security issues as far as thefts or robberies in the community, but we did have one missing person report called into the county sheriff on a Conacy resident, but the resident was located and returned home. I can't go into details on that. It's an interesting story. Financially, I know Jim Ungaro, the treasurer, is going to give us sort of an update. But right now, currently, we are doing a little bit better than budget. And one of the nice things that we've seen that started last year with the pandemic, golf became a big thing all of a sudden again, and our golf rounds are way up. So the golf operations, between maintenance costs and the revenue side, is about $110,000 better than budget year to date. And right now, if you sort of listen to the nationwide statistics, there's nothing showing that golf play is going to decline or go back to what it was pre-pandemic. So that's a good thing. That is probably going to stay at a high level for the foreseeable future, which will help quite a bit in the golf operation. We are in the middle of or the beginning of our budget process for 2022. I think I lost a year of my life, so I'm forgetting where I am. So the board is working on a budget guidance letter as well. That's sort of our first step of how we go about starting in the process. Our home sales for the year are still doing tremendously well. In May, we had 18 versus 5 the year before. And year to date, the sales are 64 versus 32 last year. The interesting thing there is that, right now there's only, as of the end of May, there's only 26 homes on the MLS. So the homes inventory isn't high for sale, but if 8 go on the market in a given month, they all sell pretty much in a given month. So the turn is still very good on home sales. Obviously, I think we'll make our year budget for that, but whether that will continue going forward forever, who knows? But it's definitely a seller's market right now. And we are also not able anymore to submit any reimbursements to the IRS for any payroll tax credits or group health care credits, which was part of the pandemic relief. Once the state reopened under normal operation, which is basically what happened where all the restrictions were lifted, you no longer qualify for those reimbursements. On other topics, the branding and marketing initiative is moving forward with the task force and Project 13. They will be presenting something to the task force in the next week or so, and then to the board sometime in July, August timeframe. And so hopefully we'll have something to roll out to the community in August or September to bring you up to date on where we are with that. The FPC has put us, and myself, we have put a task force together, and we continue to work on the Activity and Wellness Center, and we're making really, really good progress there. We think we'll have something to show the community by August or beginning of September. The one thing we are looking at now with that is, on a time frame perspective, trying to deal with material costs and so forth now to get pricing is difficult, but we think we're in a good place that we can get the same amount of space or more than the last proposal we made for less money. So that would be great if we can do that. And so far it looks like that is feasible. The organic garden expansion project that was slated for this year is now complete. We're actually added more spots than we originally thought. We were able to put 32 new plots together. So everyone who was on the waiting list on the organic plots are now off the waiting list. Everyone has one. And we also donated one to the Conacy Kids Club. And hopefully they'll have some fun learning about growing different things as well. So we were happy to help them out as well, since we had a couple extra left over. And if you go by there, I think almost every one of them has their plants and herbs and vegetables already in them. So they're going to town, which is great. At the same time we did the garden, we installed the fence along Carson Creek Road. That project pretty much is complete. We are working with the pickleball committee to find some extra storage for them. We did buy a storage unit that we're going to be able to place near the courts because they continue to grow and need more space. Right now they've been using the pool locker room, so we'll be cleaning those pool locker rooms out so we can get those reopened for the pool users. That locker room area, even though the pool was open last year, was not open last year because we didn't have the activity, but obviously this year we do, so they need that space. So, and the chlorine shortage seems to have died out. We've been able to get enough chlorine now. There was a concern for a while they weren't able to get enough chlorine, but we pretty much have enough now to get us through the summer, so we're in good shape. The slip lining business, that company that does our slip lining was here the last couple of weeks, and they were able to do all the projects that couldn't get done in 2020 and do all the ones for 2021. So pretty much all the slip line is up to date. I don't think he's here, but Jim Thompson, who's been our sort of semi-chair person, technically I'm the chair, but he does all the work. Jim Thompson, who's been the overseer of the Firewise committee, basically did put all that together from scratch years ago. Unfortunately, they have sold their house. They have a contract on their home, and they'll probably be moving out sometime in July. So we thank him for all his efforts to help protect the community and the members. Elena Harbeck has shown interest in filling his position. I've been talking to myself and Jim. She's going to attend the meeting tomorrow and meet the other committee members and the other outside people, the forest, Conacy Fire Department and the forestry people, and make sure we're all on the same page, and she'll decide whether she wants to be a participant of the committee. We hope she does. So that would fill that position. I want to thank the board liaisons, which is Mary and Janet, and also the Hemlock Restoration Initiative group, which is a third-party non-for-profit group that helped out, and then Lisa Smith, who's a member here, who was our volunteer coordinator, and all the other volunteers who got trained and helped treat our hemlock trees. Due to their help, we were able to successfully treat 443 diseased hemlock trees in the community, which sounds like a lot, but there's probably, there might be thousands in here for all we know. But we are GPSing all of them, and we are going to have a system in place. It's about every 6 years, 7 years, you need to treat them again if they haven't come back. So that is what we are doing. We also have quite a few that are along the waterways, creeks, near lakes and so forth that we don't want to treat ourselves because there is a risk associated with doing them if there's a contamination into a waterway. So we have a contract with Bartlett Tree Service to do those trees. those will start in the fall, because you don't want to do, the treatments are more successful if you do them in the fall than in the summer months. So we already have about 90 of those trees that are along waterways that are on our list to treat come fall. But all the product itself, the chemical used to do the regular treatment on the trees not near the water, is the product itself is pretty inexpensive. So the overall cost associated with continuing to protect our trees is minimal, especially since now that the volunteers are willing to continue to do the work. Really, it's all it's costing us is their time, really. So that's been great. And we did get billed $2,500 from the Hemlock Restoration Initiative, because they were here basically for 2 days, training us to do the work. So great group, great people to work with, and they can be another resource for us along the way if we need them. On a pandemic perspective too, the board, as we are doing today, and all the permanent committees were approved to start meeting in person. Some are still using Zoom, but most are now enjoying meeting in person. So that's been great. And my last topic is something sort of exciting. We've been talking about this for a while, but we just never knew if it was going to be possible. Some people may remember, well, you probably all of you remember, because of the great work the fishing club did on the 50th anniversary photography book they put together. But this is the 50th anniversary of Conacy Falls in 2021. So we were always looking to do some type of event, but we never knew if we were going to be able to do it due to the pandemic. So we originally were looking at Memorial Day, that we said, well, that's not going to work. And then we were planning July 4th. That probably would have worked, but we had to make a decision. So we pushed it again. So now on the Labor Day weekend, the Sunday of Labor Day weekend, which I believe is the 5th, we're going to do a celebration of both sort of a back to normal and a 50th anniversary celebration down at Otagai. It's going to be sort of an all-day event. Lack of a better word, like a battle of bands, all local. It's probably start around 11 or 12 and go up to the evening, and potentially end the show with a potential light show over the lake, potentially. So we'll see how it all plays out, but we're working with all local bands, local breweries, local ice cream, local food, trying to keep everything as local as possible. And we think it's a great way to celebrate the anniversary. This would be pretty much a free event, like a better word. Nothing's free, but the CFPOA would subsidize it, except potentially the beer and some of the food, but we'd only price that at like cost, basically. We're talking to the breweries, like the beers might be $2 each or whatever it is. So, so it should be a great event. Should start rolling out some information on that particular day here in the next couple of weeks, and save your date, that type of thing. So we're excited to bring the community a nice fun event like that again. So with that is my report. Thank you.
I wanted to comment on just a couple of things that in your report, you were talking about the difficulty in hiring staff, and when the supplemental unemployment goes away. You sent around an article that stated that the real problem that we don't know how difficult it's going to be to solve is so many people left the service industry during that time period. They aren't coming back. That it's not really the supplement that's a big problem there. So we really don't know when we will get back to full operation. It's just depends on when we can get the positions filled. The other thing was that you commented on was the golf revenue. I was so pleased to hear about the outside play revenue and how it had picked up, so well without any advertising. So this is word of mouth from people saying how much better our course is, saying wanting to come up here and play it. So those are a couple of exciting aspects.
And the national average or statistic on the quote unquote hospitality side of the business, like over 6.5 million people in that quote unquote area of hospitality have chosen not to go back to that particular field. They found other opportunities. And then when they were surveyed, not of course all 6.5 million of them weren't surveyed, but when they surveyed a lot of them, the comments were just that, the odds of going back were slim because they enjoyed what they're doing now. So, but the other interesting part of that was that they thought that the answer was going to be, it was a financial thing. really wasn't financial as much as, I hate to say it, but customer abuse, that they realize that there's other jobs they can do where they don't get abused as much as they do in that particular business. So, the pandemic has done a lot of different unique things, and that's one of them. The other one that's going to be interesting from a home sales perspective is, all the people that were saying whatever, like New York City is going to die, and everyone, exited out, everybody, no one's going back. Well, New York City's already starting to see increases in pricing in condos and apartments because people are going back. So some of the people who said they're never going back will go back. And whether we'll have people who came to Brevard or came to Conisee thinking this is going to be great to get out of the city, and then 5 years from now or 3 years from now go, what the hell were we thinking? They may go back. So you just don't know how it's going to play out.
Anybody else? Okay. And Jim Ungaro is going to give us a brief treasurer's update.
Right here. We met back in March, and I indicated at that point in time that for 2020, we were better than budget by $225,000. So that's been confirmed. And at that point in time, we were in the process of finalizing the audited financial statements. Those are now complete. They've been posted to the.
It's got to get closer to say.
Okay. Oh, where was I? 2019, 2020. Okay. In any case, the audited financial statements are posted on our internet site, and they're available for your review should you decide to do so. We had a nice better than budget in 2020, and I believe we're going to do the same thing in 2021. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, we have earned approximately $639,000 under the CARES Act Employee Retention Program. And that, of course, is funded, and we'll end up receiving all of that cash during 2021. Additionally, through May and projected for the rest of the year, we are ahead of budget, not only on home sales, but also on lot sales, which will also increase our potential surplus, if you will. The other reason is that the operating departments for the early part of the year were at reduced overall activity levels because of the restrictions due to COVID. So if sales in the food and beverage, it costs us more than $1 for every dollar in sales. If we do less sales, then we have less of a deficit in those departments. So we've seen some reduction, better than budget for not only food and beverage, but also for golf and over in the clubhouse area. We are gradually increasing the activity levels here at the clubhouse and for other things, other activities here in Conisee. And we'll continue to do so as these COVID restrictions are reduced also. The department budgets are projected to return to normal activity levels for most of the remaining portion of the year, and therefore we should obtain the budgeted goals by the end of the year. Now, one thing I'd like to say is that Conisee has got the financial resources to meet the operating needs of the community, and we're looking to be financially stronger at the end of the year than we were at the beginning. And of course, we're in the process right now of planning for the 2022 budget. And that information, the budget letter should go out to the general manager and the finance committee early next month. So we're on plan, and I think we're going to have a good year. So here comes 2022.
Okay, with that, we're down to, do we have any new business or old business? I'm sorry, old business to cover today? I don't know of any. No new business? Any new business? No. Okay, so with that, at 2:30, 3:30, yeah, I'm sorry, 3:30. Yeah. At 3:30, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second? Carries, so we are now adjourned. And so we will open the comment section. If anybody wants to get up and ask a question, make a comment.
Jerry Hambley, 1921. I'm glad you mentioned about looking for storage for the pool because that's what my comment is about.
Friday.
I still have some suggestions. I just like to read this because this is some of the information. Oh, come on, stay up there. The information I received from the women in the pool. So when the pool opened in May, the women swimmers of Coniston Falls discovered just how rated they are. We knew that pool activity did not have the same status as some other sports, but we didn't realize that we were rated lower than pickleball equipment. That became evident when we wanted to use the women's locker room, only to find the door locked and a bulletin stating that the room was not available because it was being used for pickleball equipment storage. Not only were we locked out of our dressing room, our changing room, 2 toilets, 2 showers, and a changing table for infant care. Upon questioning this lockout, we were advised that the area will be available at a future date. We're still wondering about the future date, Jim.
Friday.
Women and children make up the majority of pool users, and we need that facility now, not in some future time, because next month the hordes will be here in Coniston. The 1 toilet available to women is used by swimmers, bocce players, pickleball players, outside guests, and children. We suggest that Coniston Fall Management send someone to Lowe's to buy a storage shed, put that shed up by the pickleball courts, and move that equipment from our locker room. The laws of North Carolina show that for every pool facility for under 100 women, there should be 2 commodes, 2 water closets, and changing rooms. We would like that done. So thank you.
Friday. They're not as easy to find as they're not as easy to find.
Fine as you think, but we found one in Hendersonville and it's going to be here Friday. We apologize for the inconvenience, but we're trying to accommodate everybody, but we're getting it then. We're getting it in. And I believe there's only one other bathroom in locker referring to. There's not 2, there's 1 in each one. But anyway, we will have it open Friday.
Next.
I have 2 questions, actually. One is, I just received the water report. Can you hear it?
Yeah, hold it up.
I'm a shorty, so. One is, I just received our water results, and what it states in the results is that one of our wells has a higher concentration of fluoride in it, which I believe is probably the same one that we've historically had a higher concentration. Can you tell us what well that is and how close it's related to the fertilizers that we use for the
Yeah, off the top of my head, I cannot, but I can find out that information.
okay.
Carolina Water, which one it is and which location it is.
Mhm. Okay, because I mean.
It's the same one. You're right.
It is the same one. Okay, so, in the report, it says, basically that it only causes fluoridation in children's teeth.
Right.
But the reality is that chronically, we accumulate that, and it causes a multitude of other problems. So I think that we should look at the point source of this fluoride.
Yeah. And realize the water does get mixed. So even though it's coming out of one well, it can go throughout, anyone who has a water source can get that particular fluoride, right? Because it's getting mixed with the other wells too.
Right, right. Okay, so that was one question. The other question is, can you expand a little bit on what you're doing as far as the stickers or whatever, family and all members coming into Conisty and using the,
Yep. So there's been a lot of discussion over the last couple of years and comments and suggestions and questions of the board of quote unquote, the permanent guests, that people are putting people on their list to visit them on a permanent basis that don't live here, okay, that may live downtown in Brevard or may live wherever, but these people are just coming and going and using all the amenities of the association. We've looked at the numbers. There was approximately, I'm going to forget it, I think it was 1,400 or give or take permanent guests listed between the 1,400 homes in here. So it averaged like one a house. And the numbers show that they weren't visiting that often, but there was still a lot of, and we talked about that last year at a board meeting, well, actually more than last year, a year and a half ago before COVID at a board meeting saying that we don't think it's a problem, but we continue to get, comments and questions from people who think it's a problem. So we said, okay, well, if the community perceives it to be a problem, we should try to see if we can address it. So the result was the board putting together a task force, which consisted of myself and 3 of the other board members. And that was one thing that we decided to start to do is say, okay, let's get rid of the permanent guests and say to anybody who wants to come in that there's only 4 qualifications of people that can qualify for that, for that pass. And then they would get a barcode, which allows us to track them when they come in and out of the community. But right now, if you have a permanent guest, it tracks to your particular unit. But this way, we know a little bit more information who these permanent guests are, and we charge a fee for it to hopefully, again, people that were just putting their hairdresser was always the one that came up as a topic, wouldn't do that if they had to pay for it, right? So we'll see how this impacts and how many we end up getting under this. As a clarification, I picked up a hitchhiker on my way up here today, and he had the same question. And his concern or question was, does that mean I have to pay for my son to visit me or daughter? And the answer is no. If you have someone who just occasionally visits you and you put them, you call Sharon at administration, you put them in the profile in Northstar, which is our computer system, and you list them as dependents. I have a daughter and a son. If they come up to the gatehouse and say, I'm going to go visit Mr. Tours, they go on there and say, who are you? I'm Fred Tours. Here's my ID. They'll go ahead and allow access for that day because you're in his profile. So it's only needed if you have somebody who you want to have access to your home on an annual basis, year over year. We're going to charge for that right at this point.
and what are you doing as far as people working here? Not necessarily here in the.
Yeah, contractors.
Yes.
Yeah. So contractors now, that some of them are, and that was one of the problems too. Quite a few people had contractors, whether it was their lawn service or their plumber or whatever, listed as a permanent guest. That was not the purpose of the permanent guest. So you will have to call in your contract. You won't be able to list Landscape A company as a permanent guest. If they come every week, you're gonna have to call in every week or put them on your mobile app on the phone and put them in as a guest the day they're coming.
And one more question is that you said after 7 days, they had to get a new.
A pass will only last 7 days now.
Okay. So it's the pass that you're talking about.
Right.
So if somebody was renting, say for the whole summer, what would they do?
Yeah, anyone who's a long-term rental can get a barcode just like owners do. And the short-term renters just get a little ID card.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, everybody, Mike Sanders, 3217 First, let me say it's good to be on this side of the firing line. Jim, you did a really good job and answered all my questions except one, and that is the main gate. Is there any progress on modernizing our main gate? Is it a matter that is receiving some serious consideration?
Yep, we are in the middle right now with the FPC working on the facility master plan, updating it. And that will be on the agenda for 2021. We haven't got all the numbers associated with that, but we have at least got some both architect and landscape architects sort of on board to help us with that project so we can start getting some costs. There have been, as you know, have been some funds in our reserves for the guardhouse. So there is some money already established for some improvements, but I believe it might be a little bit more than what we have associated in those projects. But we are working on that and looking for that to be a 2021 project.
And my only observation would be, was there any virtue, or I'd ask you to consider if there's any virtue in a design contest for the community to get people involved? It's been my experience that first impression is extremely important, and a attractive gate can only help.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And originally they were talking about just the main gate, but then the reality is a larger percentage of our entry point is at the East Fork gate.
Really?
Most of the traffic comes through the gate, both members and guests.
Well, it certainly needs some help.
So it was expanded both the main gate and the East Fork gate, and then potentially, probably not to the same level, but it's not as big either, but at least do some upgrades to the Walnut Hollow gate as well. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So at least they're all consistent in the look. But one of the things that we're also on a time basis is obviously with the branding and marketing aspect. If we have a different brand or a different icon or logo, we want to incorporate all that into the signage before we pay for signage twice. Yep.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Let me add one thing. At your wife's suggestion, I'm going to Highlands next month to take a look at the public restrooms. I understand that is a good design, that maybe we can turn something like that into a guardhouse. So
for those of you who have seen it, it is actually one of the best looking restrooms in the country. It'd make a wonderful gate house. It's brick and stone and tin roof. And it's just,
I know which one you're talking about. Highlands.
yeah, it's really good looking.
It's right in their little area where they play the music. Next.
Firstly, I would like to thank the board for the work you've done on adjusting the access.
Your name.
I'm sorry, Nick Revel, 8092. I think that was wonderful work, and I feel much more confident now. However, we came here to complain, so let me get my complainer in chief.
Yeah, it's a little difficult to come to complain when you've been laughed at the outset of the meeting, but I'm here to talk about music night. And we live a third of a mile away. My name is Cheryl Ingram, and I'm also Unit 8, Lot 92. We live a third of a mile away from the clubhouse. And you may not be aware that the music is being played outdoors. And we hear it in our home with the windows and the doors closed. We've heard it 3 times. For the record, we did not call out the sheriff, but we have made our concerns clear to Jim, who told us in an email on May 24th, I apologize for the noise volume. The plan is to begin moving to music indoors in the Blue Ridge Lounge in mid-June. I will make sure the next couple weeks that they turn the speaker volume to a more appropriate level. Well, we would certainly appreciate having the volume at a level where we don't hear it inside a third of a mile away. And I would say, one of our reasons for moving to this community was the rules and regulations and bylaws. And there are rules concerning loud noises and the limits on use of noise producing equipment. And I think that amps is noise producing equipment. Thank you for listening. Nick, did you want to add anything?
Only that in the last, I believe it was a party, I was able to identify with my doors and windows closed a cover of Del Shannon, who I never liked at the time. So if it's loud enough for me to identify inside the person who originally sung the song, it seems to me that
The
there's a
song was
problem.
Runaway.
Runaway, yeah. Okay. Which is very tempting. So that's all we've got. But we'd really appreciate someone just trying to be reasonable and amp it down a bit. Because it's just I didn't move out of cities, which I've lived in all my life, for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Steve Meadows, 26077. The issue I want to put on the table, and I sent a note to Jim and to all the board members. There's been a growing amount of discussion among lakefront property owners and non-lakefront property owners about access to using and walking on the berms, which has gone on since this place has been in existence. But there are some concerns that a number of us have who own lakefront property, and that is there is a groundswell among some Conisty members who do not own on the lakefront, who believe that that property is it is their right to walk on it or use it. And the concern a number of lakefront property owners have is there is a chain of liability if someone were to be injured. I personally don't have any problems with people walking along it, but I do have a concern if the chain of liability isn't well understood. So I have really three questions. Has Conisty in the recent past gone back to council? I understand this was done a number of years back, but have you gone back to council to understand what is the chain of liability for people walking on the berm, which have private property notices put on it by Conisty? I may be incorrect, but it's my understanding the last time Conisty took this to council was in the late 90s, maybe early 2000s. And case law changes the way things are looked at in the courts as time goes on. So it may be worthwhile to have council take a look at this and see where is the chain of liability. Obviously, it's going to be to utility companies who use those easements, to Conisty, the association itself, but also to the homeowners. And I think if things have changed, I think all parties ought to know. So that's one thing I would like to ask. If you haven't, when will you go back to council and have take a look at that? Second thing, related to that, if you go back to council, it will be beneficial that a written opinion by council be communicated to all members of the association, but certainly to members who own lakefront property, because we are part of the chain of liability. And then the last question, over on Lake Toccoa, a number of the homeowners over there have put up their own signs, in addition to the signs that the association has put up. And I'm wondering if you go back to council, I would suggest it'd be worthwhile to show council what those signs are and ask, are those worthwhile for lake owners to put up as well? I feel somewhat conflicted in the sense that I don't want to stop people from walking along the berms. I have no problem to them walking on my property, but I do have a problem if someone declares that those berms are really Conisty property, or because Conisty takes care of the berms, everyone has a right to walk on it. Which, what doesn't happen?
The maintenance does not happen.
Oh, I know that, but what I'm saying is,
Technically, because Conisty falls, CFPOA is under contract
You misunderstood. No, you misunderstood my point.
Let's not be arguing.
You
You
misunderstood.
could
what
get
I
up and
was saying.
speak. Steve, yeah. Go ahead, Steve.
So I think it'd be helpful just to take a look at this again. And again, my concern as a property owner is what has the chain of liability moved since the last time the association has reviewed this with council?
Yeah, so we do have the original, as you mentioned, the original legal opinion going back a few years ago, 10 or 12 years ago, that basically, stated that that is private property and the homeowner does have the right to, prohibit someone from, crossing their property. And I think that's pretty clear. I don't think that's going to change. I mean, because private property is private property. But I think you have a good point on the chain of liability, because I think that's a real concern for some of the private landowners of why they don't want people. Some is just a privacy thing. Some is the concern about if someone falls and trips on their property, they're going to get sued. So if we could delineate that to show where the real liability is between the utility company, which I'm going to assume probably has some type of protection more than we do, or some type of, Mike, you might know, but a lot of utility companies to some extent has some type of almost like a cap of what their liability can be on specific things. I don't know if water companies, because this is a private utility, which is different too than a government utility. So we're probably gonna have to get an opinion on all that, to be honest with you. I think if there was a scenario of saying, hey, look, the homeowner is going to be the last person who's going to be in the liability chain, that might, solve some of the problem for some people. I don't know. But there's no doubt, I don't think from a legal perspective, that the private property, the people, here's the other dilemma too. And this is, I think it was even stated in the legal opinion, because it was brought to their attention, is not every lake lot, actually, some of the surveys that have been done don't show the property all the way to the berm. Some do. But there's not enough of them in a row. You might have 1, 2, 3 that have the survey that shows their land goes all the way to the lake level, but then the next property doesn't. The next property does. So there's no way you could create a path that way anyway. So, but our declaration is very clear that our declaration says if you're a lakefront lot, you own to the water's edge. So that would override that anyway. So the board will have to decide, but I think at least getting an opinion on the liability issue probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
The only thing that I would add to this is that there are people that are calling into question whether it is truly private property.
Yeah, well, I couldn't hear you either. Let's people go to, but we'll get, don't forget to ask me that. Yes, sir.
Frank Wolf, 6840. I'd like to thank you for mentioning the 50th anniversary books. I only have 35 left, so.
Get it quick, get them quick.
We sold out of the first 100 and
Yep.
now we're almost past our last 50.
That's great.
Also, another just general comment. Thank you for the handicap parking spots out here. There are a lot more. I believe about 50% of the population have those stickers. So
I hope not, but you're right.
at least today I was able to find a spot.
Great.
My request is that there be a standalone item in the budget titled recreational improvements to lakes Ottagahi, Toccoa, Tioga, and Wanteska. And in that percent, I request that maybe that $50,000 be associated with that account. $25,000 to hire a parks and recreation architect, which by the way, they do exist. I found about 3 firms. And to do a master plan for the recreations of all those 4 lakes. I walk around the walkway of Lake Ottagahi, the pathway at least 5 times a week. And I run into an awful lot of people that I see the children down at the beach. This is one of the items that they have to run across the sand where there are great big black dividers. And there needs to be some sort of master plan or a plan for how to get that beach safe for those children by either putting more sand in or figuring out how to do that. Also, part of this money would go towards the improvement of the most dangerous road that exists here in Conisty Falls. And that's the road that's past the exit of the Lake Ottagahi that goes down to the boat ramp or the boat storage down there. And I was gonna challenge each one of the directors to go take your car and go down that road. But then I don't want to be responsible for the towing for you having to get the cars back up. That road is a lot of, needs some help. Also, this is my wife's favorite. She thinks we ought to have a walking trail around Ottagahi Park there where the roadway is, because there are a tremendous number of people that use that as a walkway versus driving. Now, you might notice I've got mirrors on the back side here of my rollator so that when I'm walking around there, I can see a car coming behind me, and they're very neat. The remainder would be boat storage, material and labor to provide the boats, more boat storage as highlighted by these architects developing a master plan for the total boat storage and the park area. And also the road around Lake Ottagahi, the park there, it needs some help. There are parts of that road that are crumbling out right near where the restroom is. So that's my request. And I hope the board considers it and then puts it in next year's budget. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Brett Stokes, 74 Susquehanna Court. Live on Lake Toccoa, actually on the berm, for those folks who I have not had the opportunity or pleasure to meet. I wanted to bring back the discussion about the berm access. And the reason I'm bringing it back is because I think this is becoming a very big issue. And there's a lot of undercurrents going on based on my experience in the discussions I've had with not only people who live on the berm, but also with people who feel entitled to access of the berm. My personal opinion is I think there is a huge opportunity for the board and for Jim to broaden the communication, because Jim, the Friday flyer, the information you sent out with regard to recognizing that the property is the homeowners and it does not belong to Conisty, it does not belong to Carolina Water, it does not belong to whomever, it belongs to the homeowners. End of story. And what's happening is, and I hate to report this, but the behavior is getting much more egregious on the berm. And we've had in the last 2 weeks, we've had incidents where someone was on a bike, an adult, going as fast as they possibly could around the corners, who could have very easily gone around a bend and run into a dog or to a child playing or to someone walking, taking their time, enjoying the lake. We've had people who are taking pictures of people's homes. We're having people, I mean, it's just the level of activity is getting very egregious. And so I think it's really important that the communication that is provided starts with, for example, with the realtors, being brutally honest, because I think what's happening is that as I go up to the top of Lake Toccoa to the dam, they're actually using the berm and talking about the berm as a selling point. Well, guess what? If you buy in Conisty, you can walk around all the lakes. No, you can't. That's not your property. And what's unfortunate is that you have many people that are getting very frustrated and they're being forced to take action that they normally wouldn't take. Because I personally, I love the people in this community, and I really enjoy seeing people walk the lake. I just saw Mary the other day, and it's great to see Mary and say, "Good morning, Mary. How are you?" Because she wouldn't accept the money I offered to use her home as a sniper nest to take care of all the rest of the people that aren't supposed to be walking. But anyway, I think it's really important that we communicate, first of all, with the realtors and make sure that they understand that they should not be providing this as a benefit to selling the home. I think we need to also talk to all the folks who rent their properties, because that's where I'm finding there's a huge number of folks who are getting maps to say, here, you can walk Lake Toccoa, you can walk Lake Ottagahi, you can walk around. So people are just have no idea. And then they run into a homeowner who may not be happy about them walking the lake. And then all of a sudden they're bamboozled, because it's like, well, wait a minute, I was told I could walk this, but you can't because it's not your property. So anyway, long story short is I ask if there is a way for us to not only discuss the liability piece, but really to heighten that communication with folks across the whole entire neighborhood to help them understand it is private property down to the lake. You shouldn't be upset if somebody chooses not to allow you. The other thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned is we had the Blue Zone group come through. We had 25 or 30 people walking through down Lake Toccoa. And when you get a group that big, they're not really quiet, quite honestly. But anyway, I don't want to belabor the point because I know other folks want to talk as well, but please, if we can we please look into this issue and make sure, because the last thing I want to see is for all of a sudden people turning against each other and this become a much bigger issue that none of us can put out. And the people just end up saying, you know what, nobody's allowed on my property, and I'll sit there and prevent them from walking through. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jerry Mathis, and I owned a property for 24 years on Lake Toccoa. And there's a couple of things. There is absolutely no question that the berm, and it's really not a berm. If you look up definition of berm, the only berm is the dam. And I know that term's been used forever, but it's actually lakefront. So there's absolutely no question that it is privately owned lakefront property. The definition of private in the dictionary starts out with two words: not public. On every single edition of any dictionary, the first two words are not private or not public. Individual, by invite only, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same as your living room. It's the same as anywhere that you privately own. And as far as a question of liability, we don't need attorneys to tell us whether we're liable or not. If you allow access into your living room, into your yard, into your anywhere that you privately own, you are liable. There's no question about it. It's not anything to do with chain of liability or anything else. It is your liability if somebody is entered on your private property, period. End of story. That's why you have umbrella insurances. That's why you take care of your liability exposure everywhere else. You have to take care of your own liability. You can't rely on CFPOA or the utility or anybody else. It's your deeded property, and it's your responsibility and your liability. It's that simple. There's no question about it. As far as using, I don't even know where to start with that one, because there's usage and there's abuses. When we are down and we use it every day, every single day, 2 to 3 times a day, we're on our private property with our dog or having lunch or having a glass of wine or whatever, And along comes 3 or 4 people and 2 or 3 dogs, raising, laughing and carrying on, just like, how would you like that to go through your dining room? You know, and then you say, well, it doesn't matter. Well, what is matter? Matter is not a touchy-feely thing. Matter is a substance that can be measured, weighed, and defined. When they say, well, what does it matter? It matters because it's private. It matters because it's private. So this could go on and on and on, but you know, it's not in any way open to anyone's discretion to use your private property. And Conistea Falls does not maintain the private property of that lakefront. The only thing, and none of your money goes to help my private property lakefront. Not one dime, not a dime. That lakefront, which used to be basically a path, now it's a road, progressively become a road. It's just unbelievable that it could deteriorate to something of discussion in a negative manner when it's just private property. It's not open for usage. It's private. That's it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kurt Walthausen, 1828. I don't understand the policy of the storage places for canoes and things. Looking at the lake, including Memorial Day weekend, I hardly ever see any boats on the lake. And yet the storage places are full, absolutely full. There are waiting times of, when I got on the list, of 2 years. And I was sort of in the late 40s as far as number is concerned. So there's a disconnect. I mean, I assume that people are just storing their thing and are willing to pay for it, although they know they never use it. So can somebody please explain to me what the issue is or what the problem is or how it can be overcome? Thank you.
Okay, so your point is taken. That is probably somewhat true. I mean, there's people who've had kayaks stored there for years that don't use them very often, but they pay every year. So we do not have a policy in place, and I'm not sure how we would even enforce it to say you have to use it once a month or 10 times a year or once a year or 3 times a year. Well, we have increased the fee, and that's another option, supply and demand, right? But we are also looking at other opportunities. Some of the lakes are a little tight, but others do have some potential room to build some more storage, which would help alleviate some of it. But like you're right, it's not going to alleviate 120 people, because that's give or take what we have, 30 to 40 people on the wait list for each lake, for 3 of the lakes anyway, for Toccoa Dam, Ottagahi, and Toccoa Park. They each have like 40 people on the list. So there's no way you can build 120 new spots. There's not enough room for it. So yeah, so that is one option, and we're working on the budget. But you're right, it is, and that is one thing I think, I don't know whether Ray was involved in this or not in his regime, but the fishing clubs also looked at this, because they're also ones that are totally obvious, had been totally obvious they hadn't been used, because they had like, sticks growing out of them and hadn't been cleaned, you could tell, for years, but they were still being, they were still paying for the spot. So that we can control to say you have to at least clean your vessel up, but that doesn't help alleviate the problem of the storage itself. So.
The cleanup and how many additional spots you just made up.
Well, we had somebody who was on the list. The 2 years hasn't been as much. We're down to like 8 months to a year. But when we did implement the thing about the people that we contacted that had unclean vessels and gave them the option to either clean it or take it out. It did bring in about 40 spots opened up. And the other thing is quite a few of the people that have been selling their homes lately, especially some of the longer term people, were some of the people that you were talking about that have had a kayak or canoe there for 5 or 7, 10 years and never used it, and now those are gone. So we are getting a little better turnover rate on the list.
Hi. I'm Bunny Gore. My number's 5045. We've lived on Lake Toccoa for 19 years. Our house is a little unique in that it sits directly on the berm. There is no setback. When people walk by, they can reach like that. That's our house. We have water and a sodded grass yard on 2 sides. We play with our puppy out there all the time. We're out there all the time. And we have no expectation of privacy anymore. We sometimes have 2 and 3 dozen people, most of whom we have never seen in our lives. Most of them are what they call themselves respectful. I would say at this point, they would be at the best respectful trespassers. Years ago, we hardly had anybody come through our yard, so it was fine, but it really has gotten out of hand. We're really thinking seriously about putting up a sign at each end that says private property, Toccoa lakefront homeowners only, so that then homeowners can go around, and of course a few friends. But I think what's happened over the years is that people give other people who give other people who give other people permission to come through my yard. They don't have that right, but they still do it. And one time, I was walking with a friend, in fact, it was Brett's wife. We walked by a house near the dam that was for sale, and some people were outside. They had just been shown the house, and they were looking out at the lake, and they said, it's so nice that this area around the lake is part of the Toccoa trail system. And we said, no, it's not. And of course, they argued with us, but there's a lot of misinformation. But I think we're kind of being pushed to the point where we will put those signs on each end of the property. I don't know what else to do. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Gore, Bunny's husband. And I think Brett and Bunny and Jerry have gone over most of the points I was going to bring up. But I want to take just a second and give you a little historical perspective on why we feel so strongly about, owning our property and not allowing people through. We've been here almost 20 years. And I can still remember one of the bullet points when we bought the house, the people that sold it to us was, you all have a lot with 270 feet of lakeside viewing, in front of you. You've got a house that virtually sits on what we all call the berm. I mean, you can go to our lower story, open the door, and your first step out is right onto the berm. So when we have people come through, it's not like a lot of the other homes on the lakes, which may sit fairly high up above the lake. They may not even know people come through. We know every single person that comes through. But that was the reason we bought the house, because we had the house, what they call the berm, and then the lake. And we use that every single day. I'm from the Midwest. I've always liked the lawn. I've got a sodded lawn that I cut. In fact, I've got to go home tonight and cut the grass. And it's thick. It's like a putting green. We've got a barbecue. We've got hydronic chairs. We're always out there. Now, in the old days, that wasn't a problem, because the way the lake was set up, if you're standing on the dam, you've got the berm on the left and the berm on the right. They didn't connect at the far end. About 8 years ago, they put in 2 connections. If you're on the left-hand side going down, just before you start up to the RV park on the left-hand side, now there's a small dam. Well, that used to be just forest and no way across. Now you can walk down and walk right across that dam and continue on to Toccoa Park. The other area is the Qual Village parking lot. That used to be the same way. You could walk the berm, but when you got to that area, no way across. So we didn't have traffic, and that was beautiful. But about 8 years ago, that all came to an end. And now you've got this virtual, walk in the park where you can do the lake very easily. And as Bunny said, we get, we're right on the berm. We get 25 people through a day now. We used to get 1 or 2. So things have changed. So I guess what I'd like to see the board do in some way is find a way, maybe signage at the entryway where you can enter the berms wherever. If the signage could be more specific about walking and hiking, you just can't do that. And I don't see that now. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. But we want to keep the area we're in, our little spot. We want to keep it private because we use it, like Bunny said, we play in the yard all the time with the dog. It should be like a private yard. So that's my point. Thank you.
Going once? Going twice? Thank you all so much for coming today. I appreciate all the comments, and we certainly will take them under consideration.